The text I will read aloud is from the book Lives of the Musicians by Kathleen Krull. Today's composer focus, the entertainer, Scott Joplin. Born in Texarkana, Texas, 1868. Died in New York City, 1917. Pulitzer Prize-winning American pianist and composer, considered the father of ragtime, which has influenced African American music ever since. Scott Joplin's father, who played fiddle as a hobby, didn't know any black men who made a respectable living from music. But Scott Joplin's mother, who played banjo as a hobby, was sure her son was destined for a musical career. She dusted around him while he played songs by Stephen Foster on the piano at a house where she cleaned. She worked hard to pay for his piano lessons until area music teachers started offering to teach Scott Joplin for free. While other boys his age partied, Joplin practiced hard. He probably didn't go to school until his teens because of the scarcity of schools for black children. A favorite book was Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. He left home at age 17 and began playing piano in bars. The Silver Dollar Saloon in St. Louis drew Joplin for 7 years. It was like a college where he learned about music until he went to a real college at age 28. Every time he returned to St. Louis, Joplin was greeted with a parade. In the clubs where Joplin played, the air would be thick with smoke, and the room filled with pool tables and a bar. Hanging gas lamps would shed little light toward the piano, and usually people talked so loudly you couldn't hear the music anyway, except on the nights when Scott Joplin, advertised as the entertainer, played. Joplin published many of his own pieces, 50 in all, with John Stark, a white publisher, and a cross-race friendship unusual for the times. After the enormous success of his most famous piece, Maple Leaf Rag, Joplin spent long hours shut up in his study working at an oak roll-top desk. He wrote a ballet called The Ragtime Dance and an opera called A Guest of Honor. The first was published, but was a complete commercial failure. The second has never been found. Once, he left a trunk full of his possessions with his landlady in Baltimore, saying he'd be back for it when he could pay her. The trunk, which may have held the only copy of A Guest of Honor, has never turned up. Joplin was married twice. First to Belle Hayden. Their only child, a daughter, died as a baby, and the pair separated soon after. Parties in the apartments where Joplin lived in New York with his second wife, Lottie Stokes, were full of good food and music. He liked beer and gambling. He rarely spoke in a voice louder than a whisper, but he had a magnetic personality. Younger pianists idolized him, and he helped many of them out. Believing in himself, even in the face of the indifference of the public, Joplin kept working on his second opera, Treemonisha. He burned some unfinished works, including a symphony. He wanted to make it with opera or not make it at all. But Treemonisha failed. The one performance he was able to mount in Harlem in 1915 was ignored. There were no reviews, good or bad. Within 2 years, Joplin died at the age of 49. He was buried on Long Island in an unmarked grave. Over 50 years later, albums of Scott Joplin's music represented 74% of the top-selling classical recordings. The second performance of Treemonisha took place 57 years after the first at the Atlanta Symphony Hall in 1972. Considered the first truly American opera, it was awarded the Pulitzer Prize in Music in 1976. Joplin's gravestone now reads, Scott Joplin, American composer. Musical notes. The bouncy, syncopated rhythm known as ragtime was called ragged time at first because it sounded as ragged as a torn piece of cloth. People who didn't like ragtime music said it was an addictive poison that caused permanent brain damage and ruined people's morals. Maple Leaf Rag, published in 1899, was the first piece of sheet music to sell more than 1 million copies. Joplin became concerned about the way others were playing ragtime and started having a notice printed on his music. Notice: do not play this piece fast. It is never right to play ragtime fast. Author. Film director George Roy Hill used Joplin's music in his 1974 movie The Sting. After the film won Academy Awards for Best Picture, Best Score, and Best Title Song, interest in ragtime reached a new high.